Part 1 of It's Never Your Fault. My story of surviving incest. So I've been wondering how to start all of this out. If I should go all the way back to my childhood, dive super deep into how everything started with my life. But I just don't know if that's quite necessary right now. So I'm gonna start it at the age of 16. When I was 16 years old, I was living in Denver, Colorado with my mom and my dad. I am an only child and my parents are musicians. We are super close. We're absolutely that family that sings around the piano at Christmas time, always in a recording studio, always with a microphone, always with a musical instrument. It was just us three. Well, it is just us three. And I'm very, very close to my mom and dad. So we lived out in Denver, Colorado for about, I'd say about 5 years at that point. And so we had like a really nice life there. I had been accepted into a theater high school. I had just turned 16. And you know how life is at that point, just full of excitement and, also frustration of being a teenager. God, I definitely don't ever want to go back to that time. One day I get home and my mom and dad sit me down and they let me know that my grandfather's passed away. So my grandfather and I have a pretty interesting history. My grandfather was a very mean man. His nickname was actually Lucifer. He was mean to everybody and everything, it seemed like, but he was never mean to me. He always called me Mutt, which later on in life I realized how messed up that actually is. But I always felt nothing but love and warmth from him. But it was well known that he was a very hard person to get along with and just very mean-spirited. So hearing that he passed away really did affect me because I felt like I was one of the only people he showed any softness to. Like often when death comes, you're not prepared for it. So my family at that time, we just decided that the best way to get back to Kentucky was to drive. So we packed up the car with me, my mom, my dad, and our two Shih Tzus, Chewbacca and Fizzkick. So it was kind of a full house. One thing about me, I do not like road trips. I didn't then and I don't now. I'm a bit claustrophobic and I'm kind of tall and it's just, I get bored really easy and it's just not my thing. So that alone death started things off rocky. And then having to drive across country to Kentucky, that just put salt in the wound, I guess I'll say. Now, I can't remember exactly how long of a ride it is from Denver to Kentucky, but I do remember finally arriving there. Where I am from in Kentucky is a little town outside of Louisville. It's called Prospect. And so it's about, 45 minutes, maybe an hour away. It's been forever since I've been back to Kentucky. But my grandmother on my dad's side lives in the city of Louisville, and we have family members that live in the city of Louisville. So my mom and my dad wanted to stay in Louisville, and they gave me an option to stay wherever I wanted to. Now, there's plenty of room for me anywhere, and I can literally stay with aunts, uncles, cousins, grandma, anybody I want to. But being a 16-year-old boy, being annoyed with my parents and ready to get out of this freaking car, I just wanted to be as far away from them as possible. So I remember an option was to stay with my uncle who was living on a horse stable, like ranch type of scenario. Now, I had been there plenty of times before. It was kind of close to my grandpa's house, but it was definitely in the middle of nowhere. But it was kind of cool too, because it was surrounded by like a ton of horses and there were like stable cats and dogs running around. And I just liked being there. I've often thought about why I liked being there. Like what was so cool about me being there? But it wasn't that I did anything there that I couldn't do anywhere else. I don't know, I felt like I was grown. I felt like my uncle treated me as if I was an adult. And I liked that. My uncle and I, we always had a really good relationship. Nothing was ever awkward. Nothing was ever strange. He was very kind, very tall, like 6'8", an ex-Marine, but somewhat very gentle. Always had a Budweiser can. Definitely an alcoholic. That definitely runs in my family. But all around, just an energy that I enjoyed to be around. Overall, I just felt really safe there in such a chaotic moment in my life. There was a lot of strange energy at my grandfather's funeral because, like I said, he was mean. I don't want to say that people were glad that he died, but it was a bit of strange energy. So I kind of felt like a little special because it was so obvious his love for me, my grandfather. So I really wanted to say goodbye in an appropriate way. And at 16, you kind of think you're grown a little bit. So that was kind of my first time adultishing, dealing with death and a funeral. So that was tough. Now, if you're from the South, you know how funerals go. There's lots of food, lots of phone calls, lots of moving parts, lots of talk, lots of laughter, lots of crying, just busy, 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 busy. And so in the midst of all that chaos, I just wanted to go to the mall. Yeah, I did. I just wanted to go to the mall. I was really into Barnes and Noble at that time in my life, really into books and magazines and art and music. And so I just wanted a little sense of normal. So I asked my mom to take me to the mall so I can go to Barnes and Noble, which she gladly did. So my mom takes me to Barnes and Noble. I do a little shopping. And I remember buying 3 magazines. I'll never forget them. Instinct magazine, which is a gay magazine. I want to say Q, which is also a queer magazine. And I can't remember the last one. Maybe something really cheesy like a J14. I used to buy those like teeny bopper magazines and like put the posters on my walls and on my ceilings. Like I used to have a poster of Justin Timberlake above my bed on the ceiling. I can't make that up. Let's just say I was absolutely sure I was gay. A little bit of my coming out story is there wasn't much of a coming out story. I went to art school my whole life. I do remember coming out in high school at about 16 to some of my friends. But at home, I kind of got drug out. And by that I mean, one day I came home from school and my mom and dad were sitting on the couch and they had a stack of my ripped out pages from Corn magazines, if you know what I mean. Corn magazines, yeah. So that's how we had the discussion about my sexuality. So there wasn't much coming out of the closet, but I mean, it was pretty obvious with Justin Timberlake on my ceiling and finding Corn magazines, it is what it is. Ultimately, I didn't hide much of who I am or hide the literature and things that I read or watched. I think this is a good place to pause for now, and we'll continue with the next video of part 2 of It's Never Your Fault, my story of surviving incest.